I understand that I'm naturally make sure that things get executed. If I understand that about myself, then I know to surround myself with things that help me to get that done.
Welcome to Insights with Marcia. This is going to be a fun show because with me today is Ronna Keller, my executive producer, and we're having a little fun. We decided to put our logo on our vests because it's Dallas, Texas, and it's cold to us. Well, it's actually 50 outside. It's freezing cold to us at 50. We put vests on at 70 degrees practically.
Texas, that's what we
And
do.
we just said, let's wear our little logo vests today. But besides being an executive producer, Ronna is an extremely talented person. She has a whole other business called Prospective Quest. And it just matches so good with the show because one of the things you do is you help people understand themselves, what they're good at, what they're not so great at, what their strong points are, which is all about helping them to find their purpose and their passion and what they're meant to do. And it goes so far as how to relate to others and all.
Absolutely.
So I just love it. I think it's fun. In our little bonus episode, we're going to give away some stuff about how we relate to our husbands and kids and things like that. But do you want to tell them a little bit about, it's called Life, Languages, and Working Genius. So do you want to tell them any more? Yeah.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Marcia. I'm so glad to be here with you today. It's fun to see all the episodes that you've done so far and get to be a part of one and talk about different things like life language and working genius. So what I do in my business is I help people discover the way that they can be the best person, the best version of themselves. And the two of the tools that I use are Life Language and Working Genius. So Life Language is a communication tool to help you understand how you communicate. There's 7 different life languages and everybody communicates in all 7 languages, but there are a couple of them that you are going to be more prominent in, and discovering what that is helps you understand how you communicate and helps others discover how they communicate. And then Working Genius is a productivity tool. You may have heard of Patrick Lencioni. He wrote a book called Working Genius, and it helps people to discover exactly how they function on a team, whether they're the tenacious one or whether they're the idea person or whether they're the galvanizing one, just what role you play on a team. And knowing that helps you be more successful.
That is really good. I can remember in school, they would always say, now we're going to have the group project. And I was one of those that kind of went, okay, because I knew there were certain people that I could work with good on a team and some I wouldn't. Would have been really nice to understand this at that point in my life. Of course, I don't know, probably would have been just given the people I had anyway, but I can understand that. I remember those projects. So, first off, so you guys will know, Ronna's got a free online version where you can understand your number 1 language. And if you want to get deeper and more of a dive into it, you've got another version that they can see on the website. We'll go through the 7 life languages real quick and you can give them a brief overview. So what is a mover?
A mover is somebody that sees things in black and white, and they want to know what is your motive of what are you trying to tell them, what's your bottom line that you want to communicate with them. And so they're very ambitious people, they're very energetic people, and so they're going to make sure that things get done. They don't want a lot of fluff, just let's go with the bottom line.
Okay, what about a doer?
A doer, gosh. I have so many doers in my life, and they love a checklist. They love to write out everything they want to get accomplished in a day, and they love checking it off, physically checking it off. And if they get to the bottom of their list and they're finished, they feel like they've accomplished a successful day. But if they get halfway through their list and they're not finished, they're frustrated and will usually get up early the next day to complete that list.
I do know a doer that if she ended up doing an extra errand or two that weren't on her list, she'll put them on her list and then cross them out. Just so she can feel more productive. Yeah. Yes. Okay, how about an influencer?
Influencer is somebody that is fun-loving. If you have a conversation with an influencer, At least once in the conversation, they'll say something is fun or something will be fun or let's have fun. They're just happy-go-lucky. They love people. The more people that they're around, the more that they like it. They're energized by people. They like bright colors. They like fancy decorations, fun things like that. Everything that is what another language might call extreme, that's what an influencer is.
Gee, I think you might have given something away about the two of us, right? With the set with hot pink
With the hot
lamps
pink and
and
pink
hot pink
colors.
shirts. We both might have a little bit of influencer in us.
Influencer.
Yes, yes. Okay, responder.
Responder. Most of the children under the age of 12 are responders. And I only say that because if you have a child that you're having difficulty communicating with, recognizing that they're very emotive, their primary question is, do you care about what I'm talking about? And so a lot of times they're going to require eye contact. They're going to want to make sure that you're looking at them. And then you may need to repeat back what it is that they've told you so they know that you have heard them and that you care about what they're saying.
Oh, I think that one's good because when I was teaching Naturally Slim, there was a book I would recommend, and it was called How to Talk So Children Will Listen and How to Listen So Children Will Talk. And it's very much about just looking at them, giving them some attention, and mirroring back what they say.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, you can kind of blow them off and halfway listen to them, and that will take 20 minutes to get the conversation, or you can do what you just said and engage them, and in your conversation, you can get it in half the time.
And it's much deeper. It's much more valuable.
And they feel important.
Yes.
So that's neat to know that all kids under about 12 are that way. Very interesting. Okay, Shaper.
Shaper are the people that are extremely organized. They love to make a plan. They usually start with the end in mind and work backwards. How are we going to be successful at the goal that we're getting toward, and then work backwards? And so Shapers, you almost always will hear them talking about a plan that they have to make. Well, let's make a plan. If you say, let's go on vacation. Okay, well, let's work on the plan. Let's map out what it is that we're going to do.
I like that. Those people are nice to take vacations with because I'm not good at mapping it out. And I love somebody who maps it out.
We have a mutual friend who does vacation planning, and she's a high shaper.
Okay. Producer.
I love being around a producer and being friends with a producer. They're extremely resourceful people, and they're very hospitable. They love inviting people into their home or into their space. And once those people come into their space, they feel very welcomed and very at ease because a producer just has a gift of hospitality, just almost unknowingly. They're hospitable. The other thing is that they're extremely financially resourceful. They are good stewards of their money. And if they see people that are spending money needlessly, they become very frustrated because they themselves are very good money managers.
I got to tell you something about that one.
Okay.
We already said that's one of my top strengths. We have a term, OPM, other people's money. And when I ran a big company, it would be like, you want to give what away? And it's going to cost $15 a person? Just mailing somebody. And I'd be like, no, we really don't need to do that. And I was all about, giving and stuff, but I'd be like, OPM, that it was easy for them to do if it wasn't their money.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So I was very generous, but I knew where to draw the line. Okay. Last one, Contemplator.
Contemplator is one of the most interesting languages. And so again, I just want to remind everyone that everybody speaks in all 7 languages, but you have some that are more primary. People who are contemplator are big into research. They research, they study, they're learners, they're lifelong learners. They constantly want to learn things, not for the sake of necessarily telling somebody what they learned. They just want to know it themselves so that they can use that as a resource whenever they get ready to answer a question. They like a lot of personal time. Whenever you're talking with a contemplator, it's important to give them eye contact. They like eye contact, but they also need a lot of by themselves time so that they can think about what they want to think about. They can do the research and that kind of thing.
I like that. Okay, so before somebody discovers what their life language is or their working genius, what might be some signs that they're unclear of what their identity really is?
So one of the things that I see most often is people will become very anxious and very frustrated in relationships and trying to relate to people because they don't understand, number one, their communication style, nor do they understand the person that they're communicating with's communication style. And so they just assume that it's gonna be the same, and so if there's someone who's a mover, who's all about a bottom line, that's communicating with someone who's a responder, who's very emotive and is gonna take a little bit longer to explain what's going on, they'll become very frustrated, and so once people identify what their primary language is, it's a lot easier for them to have conversations and not get as frustrated if it doesn't go exactly as they expect.
Mhm. That what you just said right there kinda it actually makes me think of the love languages that so many people are familiar with. It's like one of my daughter's love languages is quality time.
Uh-huh.
My number one love language is just words of affirmation. That's easy and cheap. "Hey, you look great today." "Thank you." "I'm good for the day." But, quality time could be an hour or
Yeah.
2 hours and going to their home and doing that. So, if I don't do that, she might not understand I really love her. So you're saying the same thing but more applicable to, say, the business world or
Yeah,
whatever, that you're
exactly.
talking two different languages. I
Exactly.
guess that's why they call it life
Life
languages.
languages, right. So that's a really good point. So for someone whose love language is quality time, that would correlate to someone whose life language is contemplator. And so if you've got someone who's a shaper trying to talk to someone who's a contemplator, the shaper wants to get things done. They want to be productive. They want to execute. They want to get things done. But then if you've got someone whose love language is quality time and contemplator, they're not going to move as fast.
That makes so much sense. Okay, so how do our life languages influence how we see the world and how the world sees us?
I think that's a really good question because if I understand that I'm naturally a shaper, planner, I'm gonna make sure that things get executed. If I understand that about myself, that I know to surround myself with things that help me to get that done. Also recognizing that people begin to see me that way and they understand how I'm going to function in a particular situation, that helps them to be able to put me in the right spot, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's on a project or on a team.
Okay. What was your biggest surprise for you when you learned your life languages?
So I learned my life languages, oh gosh, 25 years ago. So
Wow.
I went to work for a company and I had just started and they were doing the life languages with everyone. And because I was the newest employee, they wanted to use me as the guinea pig. And so I had taken my life language and my primary language was shaper and it was at 98%. And then
Wow.
my second language was influencer and it was at about 93%. And so they had so much fun with that because they said your influencer is when people come into your office and they want to talk to you, you're automatically in influencer mode because you're a people person. But the minute they start telling you what their problem is, you go into solving the problem. And so they may still think they're talking to the influencer, but you switched over to a shaper and you're working out the plan that we need to implement to be able to solve the problem. And so that
Oh,
was just enlightening to me that I needed to
yes.
be recognize that and not do a head whip for people whenever they were telling me their problem. I could just say, that's really interesting. I think I might have an idea rather than say, we need to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, I see that. Wonderful. Yes. Okay, so how can understanding other people's life languages help you communicate better with them?
Yeah, I think it's really important to recognize the differences. God created us all different. We're all unique, just like snowflakes. Every snowflake is different. Every person is different. And so to recognize that there are unique giftings in each of the languages and be able to communicate with a person on their level makes the relationship so much stronger. So
Mm.
for example, I have one of the people that I work with is a mover. And so movers really like the bottom line. So I have to know that if I'm about to approach this person with a situation, I need to come in with the bottom line. This is the problem that we need to solve. And then work backwards from there. I can't begin to tell them a bunch of little things to get to the bottom line because I lose them because they want to know what's the bottom line. Where are we going with this?
Yeah,
So,
that really is good because I used to teach in my Naturally Slim classes that there are two kinds of people. You're either a verbal processor or a complete sentence person. And one almost always mirrors the other. And so my dad was a verbal processor and my mother was a complete sentence. Well, let me put it this way. I'm a verbal processor. So my husband, I'm sure, just automatically knows when I start talking, he kind of tunes me out for a little bit and then he turns the volume back up when I'm getting close to the finish line. Excuse me. So I learned just from that I need to say at the end of it, my bottom line is this. Now I know I need to say at the beginning.
Yeah. Start with your bottom line and then do all the filler, because then he's more apt to listen to what you're saying because he knows where we're going with it.
Yes, yes, yes. So it's just kind of funny when you learn that. And if the two of them try to, like, if you try to get in a relationship with somebody that's your same one, it doesn't work.
Uh-huh.
Excuse me, I have a tickle in my throat. Okay, have you seen any aha moments where someone finally gets their life language? Like,
I think one of the things that has been most rewarding for me in helping people discover their life language is when a couple is having difficulty communicating. If they both take the life language and we recognize that one has a life language of say contemplator and the other one has a life language of influencer, we understand where they're bumping up in their communication, and we can help them learn how to communicate with each other better so that their communication is more successful. I think another example is whenever parents are having difficulty communicating with their children, and it's usually as children hit their tweens into their teens and they're starting to find their own identity and they're trying to test these different personality types out, and parents just get all frustrated because they can't communicate. But if they recognize what their life language is, then they know how to communicate with them in their specific communication language, and it just makes everything go much smoother.
that is so great about trying to communicate with the tweens and the teens. I was with a group of friends on Friday night, and one of them said, had been particularly tense with this teenager. And so she put into chat, how should I respond? And she said, oh, that sounds so good. And sent it to her son across the house or whatever. And he goes, Mom, do you really think you need to pull up an answer from Chat GPT to talk to me? I thought, only a teen would know she had done that, Wow. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Okay, so how do life languages, we're kind of already on this, show up in close relationships like marriages and families and things like that?
Yeah. So what tends to happen in close relationships is you become much more familiar and you let your guard down. So, for example, when I'm at work, my tendency to communicate is a whole lot more intentional because there are relationships that are not as close. But whenever I'm communicating with close friends or with my family, I tend to put my guard down. But that's when it becomes a problem because I'm more self-centered than I am others-centered. And so just recognizing, and it's been really helpful for me as I've learned life languages and I've taught life languages to people, just recognizing the people that I'm communicating with, because in every language, there's a distress signal. So an influencer has a distress signal, and when an influencer is distressed, they'll overpromise and underdeliver. When a mover distresses, they want to take over. If they get in distress, they'll take over the project and they'll kick you out of the project or kick you out of the situation. So I've learned how to communicate and understand my loved ones' communication styles much better, and we communicate a lot better than we used to.
Oh, I like that. That could sure help some misunderstandings. So what's the biggest mistake about understanding or whatever? So your lower life languages, so let me explain that to the audience by saying you have 7 and they're all ranked on a scale of 1 to 100.
Right.
There's those lower ones, and you said we have all 7.
Everybody has all
What's the
7.
biggest misunderstanding we have around our lower number ones?
So the biggest misunderstanding is you can speak in all 7 languages, and most people will default to their first, top 2 or 3 that are over about 50. But what you have to recognize, if you're communicating with someone that has a primary language that's one of your lower languages, if you will be intentional to communicate with them in the language that they understand, it'll go better for everybody. You'll feel more fulfilled. They'll feel more fulfilled. The communication will be much stronger if you recognize how they're communicating to you and then communicate back with them in that way.
Oh, that is good. That is good. So which of the life languages do those people seem to be the most overlooked?
I would have to say contemplator. Contemplators, as I mentioned earlier, they tend to really think about an answer before they give an answer or a response. And so they're not going to give a response real quickly. They're going to think about it. They're going to draw on their Rolodex file of research that they've done for years to see what matches that would be a good response. And so we have to learn to be a little bit more patient with with contemplators whenever they're responding to a particular situation.
Yeah. I totally understand this because before I understood life languages, I understood Enneagram. Excuse me. And there was a guy that I knew was a 5 and very smart. And we'd have our weekly meeting of the heads of all the departments. And I knew that, as I'm going to call him now, a contemplator, he was sitting back and he was surveying the room. He was interpreting all the different things. But what happens is the meeting usually moves on before they'll say something because they're contemplating.
Right.
And I would always have to say, hey, such and such, what do you have to say about this? And I also call contemplators, like if the 5 in Enneagram, wise old owls.
They are.
Uh-huh. And I thought, I'm not letting this get by. What do you have to say? I'd always stop and say, what do you think about this? Because all of a sudden, they're surveying the whole room. They know what this person's got in mind and that person's got in mind. They can kind of tell you the agenda of every person in the room.
Absolutely.
And I would make sure to call on him. So all this stuff is just so valuable and you can get so in depth with it. Okay, so basically, let's move from the life languages to the working genius, kind of tell people the difference now. Tell us about what working genius is going to be all about.
Okay, working genius is a tool that you can use to assess yourself and your team members to recognize what strength they bring to the team. Every organization, every volunteer organization have people that work together to bring about certain goals and to accomplish certain goals. Well, if you don't have somebody that has a working genius of wonder, then you're not going to have somebody that's curious to come up with thinking outside the box. Then there's the working genius of invention. Those are people that are always coming up with ideas, no matter what. They've got a new idea, a new way to do things. Then you've got the working genius of discernment. Those are the people that can look at the ideas and say, I don't think that's going to work because of X, Y, and Z. Then you've got the working genius of galvanizing. These are the people that can get the team together and rally them behind. They're the cheerleaders behind the project and say, let's go, let's do this. Then you've got people who are enablement. Those are the people that are so service-oriented. They just want to do whatever it takes to help to bring about the project that we want to have brought about. And then the last one is tenacity. These are the people that don't mind doing repetitive tasks on a regular basis. These are the people that are gonna make sure that the project gets done and it gets done well and that all the boxes are checked off. So as you can imagine, having every different working genius on a team is vital. So when you take the working genius assessment, it will show you what your top 2 geniuses are, the ones where you're the most genius in functioning. Then the second 2 are going to be your competencies. That means you can function in those particular aspects. And then the bottom 2 are frustrations. Those are going to be the ones that if you have to do that for very long, you're going to get burned out and you're going to say, oh my gosh, I need to do something different. So it's a very valuable tool. I found it to be very valuable. The other thing that we do is we take a team and we put all the working geniuses on a map and we show which ones are strong and which ones are weak. So we know if we're hiring for someone, we know what particular role we need to be looking for in a team.
Yeah. And that to me is invaluable because in Naturally Slim, we taught something called vital needs. And it's sort of like this, what particular things are really important to you. And I still remember to this day, this sweet young gal that she said, I know why I'm unhappy with my job now. She goes, it fulfills none of my vital needs.
Uh-huh.
She literally quit her job and went back to college to get a different degree.
Wow.
So learning something like this early on that's invaluable. That's years.
It's so important. And that's one of the things that I love being able to do this for people, especially the younger that they are, because how many people do you know got out of high school, went to college, got a degree in something, and then 10 years down the road, they're like, I hate this.
Yes.
But then they feel trapped because they paid money to go to college, to get a degree, and they're like, what can I do now?
Yeah.
It's never too late to change. It's never too late to fulfill your dreams and be able to accomplish what is in your heart to do.
Yeah. Okay, so what does working genius reveal about our core motivations and frustrations?
So one of the things that I like to talk about is the two that are real clear to understand is if you take someone who has a strong working genius of a tenacity, that means they're going to make sure that every T is crossed and every I is dotted. Everything that we want to accomplish is going to be accomplished and it's going to be done well and it's going to be on time. But if you put them in a role where they have to galvanize, they have to get 5 or 6 people to come behind and be the cheerleader, they're going to hate that. Or if you put that same person in a role where they have to come up with ideas all the time and come up with new solutions, they're going to hate that. So they're not going to be successful. They're not going to thrive. Likewise, if you put someone that is continually curious, these are the people that'll say, I wonder, repeatedly throughout the day. I wonder what if such and such and such and such. If you put that person in a role that's repetitive tasks, they're going to burn out and they're going to hate it because it's not how they're wired to be. And so it's so important that we get into roles where we can function and accomplish what we were wired to accomplish.
Mm-hmm. Okay. This is kind of a long question.
Okay.
How do people, or no, why do people feel guilt or shame or frustration about the types of work they don't naturally excel at?
The way that I like to explain it is you can't be all things to all people. And I think that's where frustration and shame and guilt come in, is trying to do every single solitary thing instead of recognizing what you do and what you do well to be able to be successful at that and let the other people who are good at those other roles do that and do that well as a team. That's what's going to keep people from feeling shame, condemnation, frustration, those kinds of things.
Okay. So how can teams avoid burnout and conflict by aligning their roles with the other members?
I really like to encourage team leaders to not be afraid to change up the people that are sitting on the bus. You know, a lot of times you hear people talk about we've got to get the right people on the right seat on the right bus. So that's true. But sometimes you have somebody in a role, and a lot of times they've been there for 10, 12 years,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden you do the working genius and you recognize, oh, wait, this person would be much better in this role over here. Don't be afraid to make that change because they're loyal to the company, obviously. And if you put them in another role where they're going to be a whole lot more successful, the company's going to be more successful. The team is going to be more successful.
And everybody's going to be happier.
Everybody's going to be happier.
Yeah. So how does working genius help you see the difference between what I can do and what I'm called to do?
Okay, that's a great question. So remember how I told you that there's 6 different working genius competent, six
Yes.
different working geniuses. They're categorized into 3 categories. The first one is the 2 geniuses. Those are the things that you're called to do, the things that you function best at, the things that you can do without even thinking about it. They're the things that you just do naturally. Your competencies are the next 2, and those are things that you can do, and you can do those for a little while and not be frustrated. But if you're stuck there and you never get to work in your working genius, you're going to be frustrated. And so if you're on a team, if you're a team leader and your team takes the working genius and you recognize there's somebody that has a working genius in one area, but they're working in their competency, you don't have to change them right away, but begin to make a plan to move them into that genius role versus the competency role, and you'll see a whole lot more productivity come out of them.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yay. Okay. So what are working genius and life languages? How do they give a picture of your God-given design?
So
Because there is a God-given design.
there
You
is
placed
God
in all of
created
us
us.
something different.
Yeah, everybody's different. So what I like to say is if I know what my working genius is and I know what my life language is, I'm going to be able to communicate and be an effective team member on any team that I serve.
Mm,
Just knowing who I am, knowing who I'm created to be, and to be okay with that and accept that and agree with that and not try to be something that I'm not.
mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. Okay, so can these tools help us hear God more clearly for our calling and our purpose?
You know, Marcia, I think that it can because once I recognize that it's okay for me to be a shaper and make a plan, and it's okay that I'm not a responder, then it takes out all the distraction and all the noise of this should be, I should be this, I should do this, to
Mm,
hear what God's actually saying. saying to me, he can say to me, Ronna, you're a shaper, so I want you to make a plan about X, Y, and Z. Whereas if I'm listening to all the noise saying, oh my gosh, I should be more feeling and caring about this situation, then I'm just being distracted from what I need to be doing.
Hmm. So how can these frameworks help somebody that's stuck? Because there's a lot of stuck people,
Yeah.
and a lot of us don't even know we're stuck until somebody like you is fixing to talk about it.
Yeah. I think the first thing that I would recommend is for people to take the life language profile. If you're having difficulty communicating either at work or at home, I would encourage you first to take the profile. Then if there's somebody that you're having difficulty communicating with, invite them to take the profile also. And just as Marcia said earlier, there's a link at the bottom of our podcast here that will let you take the assessment for free, and it will tell you what your first language is. Then if you want to hear what your other 6 languages are and where you rank in those, then you can pay for that for extra. It's really a very beneficial tool in communication. If you're having difficulty at work and you just feel burned out and frustrated, I would encourage you to take the Working Genius profile and then compare that to what your tasks and responsibilities are in your role at work. And if you need to make a change, then go to your supervisor and say, I think I could be a whole lot more effective in a role that's X, Y, and Z. I'll continue to do this until we can create that role, but then you'll be a whole lot more fulfilled and be able to do what you were created to do.
And I think you just gave away a big key right there. If you're feeling fulfilled, if you're feeling happy, if you pretty much want to go to work in the morning, you're probably where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because you'll be happy with it. Because, the maker creator wants us all to be happy. And when we're fulfilled, we're doing the right thing.
Right. We're letting our light shine.
Yeah.
But whenever we're frustrated, there's a darkness that comes. And so the more that we can agree with who God created us to be, the more that we can walk that out and be a demonstration of God and his goodness.
Yes. Okay. How can somebody start using these tools immediately in their personal life or in their marriage or at work? If they're like, let's get going.
So again, I would encourage you to take the assessment. And when you take the free assessment and you get your primary life language, it will show you what the characteristics are of that particular language. And so you'll look at that. I can't tell you how many people take it and they're like, oh my gosh, it absolutely read my mail. I didn't realize that, but that's exactly true about me. And I love that about the life languages. Anyway, so take the assessment so that you can see that and then begin to walk that out. Have your partner take it. And again, the free one, that's what the link is there for. So you can take advantage of it and then see what the differences are in your different personality types, your communication styles, so that you can begin to communicate more effectively. And then the same with Working Genius. I don't have a link for a free version, but it's $25 to take the Working Genius profile. And I think that it'll give you a library of tools that you can use to be able to be more successful in your career.
Totally. It's a good investment. That could be the tip for a nice dinner.
Yes.
Definitely. So what's the biggest change you see in someone who's really been practicing the skills? What's some of the big change you see?
Just like I mentioned, it's a whole lot easier for me to communicate with people now and then to be able to see couples that I've met with couples and help them discover their crosstalks and where their challenges are in their communication, to be able to see them be a lot more effective and a lot more generous in their communication with each other. And just, some of these couples I've walked with for a long time, and then all of a sudden they go through the life languages and take the crosstalk profile, and then to see them a month later or 2 months later and how they're interacting more effectively with each other.
Well, I think we have exhausted my list. What's your website address?
www.perspective-quest.org.
All right, that's easy enough. And the links are going to be there and everything else they need. And in our bonus segment, we're going to talk a little bit about some personal stuff and give some fun examples. Is there anything else you want to share before we go?
No, I'd just love to encourage everybody to consider learning more about yourself so that you can be the best effective person that God's created you to be.
Yes. So thank you for joining us with this definitely interesting segment on Insights with Marcia, where you can actually we have given you an action item. you can go take the test and find out some more about yourself. And since we're all about helping you find your destiny and your purpose and your calling, great place to start. So we'll see you next time on Insights with Marcia.